So the progressive era largely ends with the coming of the Great War, World War One. We also talked just about the age of American imperialism, which kind of runs about the same time as the age of progressivism. And Woodrow Wilson is going to be the president at this point. So the World War One starts in Europe in 1914. It's going to end around 1918, but the United States doesn't get involved until 1916, 17, somewhere in there. Woodrow Wilson's president. He's the last of the progressive era presidents. And there's several long-term causes in Europe that lead to the war. And we often refer to them as the main causes of the war. First is militarism. All of the countries in Europe were building up these big militaries. And when you make the big military, you want to be able to show it off. And that's part of the problem. A is alliances. So we have this system of alliances that get in place in Europe, and they kind of assume that with all of these alliances in place, that nobody would be foolish enough to start a big war. We don't really study this, but that kind of proved false with the Franco-Prussian War. But everybody thought that if there were any conflicts, it'd be just kind of quick and get over without any big involved thing because of this alliance system. The two alliances that we have at this point are the Central Alliance and the Allied Alliance. The Central Alliance was Germany, and Austria-Hungary. These are the two big ones. The Allied powers were Britain, France, and Russia. Okay, there's a few others in there, but those are the major ones. The I in main stands for imperialism. All of these big countries were going on trying to take colonies, and they're competing over the colonies. And everywhere they had colonies that bordered against each other, there was this friction because of the big militaries and because of the alliance system. And the last one is probably the most important, and that's nationalism. Nationalism is kind of like patriotism on steroids, right? Nationalism is when people kind of blindly follow what the leadership wants them to do. They stop thinking and they start just acting, and whatever is good for what they think is good for the country is going to get done. There's a bit more to it. We'll talk about it more later. These are the main causes. The spark, the thing that triggers the event, is the assassination of Austro-Hungarian Prince Franz Ferdinand. Franz Ferdinand was the crown prince, which means he was the next in line for the throne. He goes on a parade in Sarajevo, which is the hotbed of Serbian nationalism, and in 1914, and he's going to be assassinated by a Serbian nationalist, Gavrilo Princip. And the Serbian nationalists wanted to kick the Austro-Hungarians out of their territory. Austro-Hungary as an empire had 30-some different nationalities. The Serbians wanted to get the Austro-Hungarians out. Well, what this leads to is a triggering of the alliance system. Austria-Hungary, with Germany's approval, wanted to put the Serbians back in their place. And the Serbians had kind of this tentative alliance with Russia. The Austro-Hungarians had this big list of demands that the Serbians needed to follow, most of which would have taken away whatever independence they had within the empire. The Serbians balk at this. They don't really want to do it. And Austria-Hungary prepares for war. When they start preparing for war, Russia mobilizes for war because they're Serbia's ally. When Russia mobilizes, that kicked in this alliance system, and the Germans felt that they needed to attack before Russia mobilized because while they were an outdated army and need a lot of time to get prepped up, they were worried that they would be powerful. Russia mobilizes, Germany attacks, but they attack France. Okay, so there's an attack on France, and that when Germany attacks France, that brings Britain into the war. So the alliance system, the militarism, the nationalism all played a role in starting World War I.